Bend Around the Wind by Skylia. Chapter 86. Liberate! Part 1. Stark, Hatchet, and Yu stood on the bridge of the Iron Mage, but they could do nothing else but stare at the other's ship and the dome of energy over San Diego. Stark was clenching his fists way too many times, his body rigid and tense. Hatchet was a big bowl of nervous and furious energy next to him. It wasn't helping anyone, really. The whole thing was nerve-wracking. "We shouldn't have let him do this," Hatchet said. Again. "Yeah, 'cause Loki needs permission from either of us to do anything," Stark told him. There was no talking Loki out of this. It was obvious to everyone. It could have been about San Diego, but Yu was not sure she believed that. It had to be about the other. Loki might have tried to make it sound like he was only looking out for Earth, but there was a sharp, almost eager glint in his eyes when he dropped Hatchet and Bee off at the Iron Mage. Yu rarely saw that particular look on his face, but she knew it well enough anyway. He wanted revenge for what has been done to him and Stark. "You could have stopped him," Hatchet said. His mind was probably going in loops about this. "If you really wanted to." Stark sighed. "Yeah, maybe," he agreed. "But I'm not a big fan of the whole passive-aggressive guilt-tripping or manipulation game. It would have been really pissed at me if I had tried anything like that." "Understatement," Yu agreed. Loki would have been ballistic. He would not have taken it well that anyone tried to deny him this opportunity. Yu understood it a little too well, what it was like when you were not allowed to fight your own battles, when you could not have the chance to make those who hurt you pay. So probably not even Stark himself could have stopped him. "He would be safe, though," Hatchet told them quietly. "Look, I'm not happy about this either, okay?" Stark turned to look at him. "But Loki does what Loki wants, so we're stuck here waiting until we can go and help him." Hatchet clenched his jaw, but then nodded, his eyes still locked on the screens. "Don't you want to join the others down at the cargo hold?" Stark asked them. Bee and Drongo were already down by the Drake. They were all waiting for the dome to fall or weaken enough. They were here, the Avengers gathered on the helicarrier. Hatchet, Yu, Bee, and Drongo intended to fly down to the city with the Drake, while Stark stayed on the Iron Mage. They were going to need the extra firepower only the ship could provide, so while it would have been good to have Stark with them down on the ground, it was more useful if he remained on board. Yu still didn't feel that good about their odds. Sure, Stark finished a bunch of weapons and armor for them all before they came to confront S.H.I.E.L.D., but it was not really the battle on the ground Yu was worried about. The Iron Mage was still a cargo ship, not designed for battle, not something that was meant to hold out against the giant monstrosity that was the other's battleship. Unfortunately, it was still the best they had. Hatchet didn't move. His arms were crossed over his own chest so tightly that it looked like he was squeezing the air out of himself. He's been edgy since the attack on Stark's house. Not knowing what was going on with Loki certainly did nothing good to his state of mind. "It's not like you can see more from here," Stark told him. "He's right. Come on." Yu lightly punched the elf on the shoulder. "Let's get ready to kick some butt." Just standing here and watching the ship at the force field was definitely riling the elf up too much. It was getting on Yu's nerves, too. "You're right," Hatchet nodded after a moment. "I'd hate it if we were delayed because of me." "I'll let you know as soon as you can go," Stark promised. "You better!" Hatchet rested his hand on Stark's shoulder briefly as he turned to leave. It was a gesture of camaraderie, still so new between the two of them, that Yu was always left staring for long moments whenever it happened. "The energy signature of the dome appears to be wavering," Jarvis announced. Yu got to her feet, her shiny new long-range rifle securely on her shoulder. She did not have that much time to practice with it so far, but she was confident she could use it just fine. "Everybody copy that?" Stark asked. "Heard it loud and clear," Drongo answered. Hatchet never even sat down while they waited, and now he was already marching inside the Drake, obviously eager to do something. Loki's been on his own for too long. "Can the barrier be crossed yet?" Steve asked through the comlink. They were all connected with the Avengers now, and not just with each other. Yu still didn't know whether she liked most of them or not, but they needed the help, and there were worse allies out there. Not that they could afford to be picky or anything. Not yet, Stark said, but soon it's steadily dropping. Time to get ready. Copy that, Steve said. Should we wait or get going right away? Drongo asked as they all walked into the Drake. Juyu took the pilot's seat and Bee sat down next to her. Hatchet and Drongo stayed in the back. Wait just a bit more, Stark told them. Also, it's best if you stay with the Avengers once you're down there. I have other things to do, Hatchet interrupted. Yes, you go to the Fae and do your thing, Stark agreed. But for the rest of you, Juyu, stick with Hawkeye. Bee, you're with Widow. Drongo, stay with the Hulk. You got it, Juyu confirmed, fighting side by side with Barton. Well, that was going to be fun! Just follow Gab's lead, alright? That's the best way we can go about this, Tony told them. I appreciate that, Tony, Steve said. Stark did not reply. Maybe he didn't want to. Maybe he just had nothing to add to the matter. The dome is dissipating, Jarvis reported. Juyu was getting used to him being everywhere on the ship, including the Drake. It was a reassurance, someone watching out for them all constantly, even when they couldn't watch out for one another. Alright, showtime, Stark said. The cargo door was already opening, so Juyu fired up the Drake to take off. When they descended down below the clouds, it was visible how weakened the barrier over the city was. It was still there, flickering like a dying flame, but obviously vanishing. We don't know how big the panic down there is, Steve said through the comlink to all of them. But we can assume that people are going to notice that the barrier is down soon enough. That's not going to be pretty, Julia remarked. She spotted the Avengers Quinjet in the distance and moved the Drake to get closer to them. Not at all, Steve agreed. That's where we need to get to the naval base first. We still don't have any radio connection with them, Natasha added. If they're locked up, we're going to get them out, Steve said. We need their help to take back the city. How many soldiers are in there again? Drongo asked. About 35,000 at least, Steve told them. Yeah, I think that's good enough backup, Barton chimed in. Take the lead then, Juyu prompted. I have no idea where to land. When the Quinjet changed directions, Juyu moved the Drake slightly behind it while keeping enough distance for maneuvering. They were getting dangerously close to the other's ship. Juyu tensed a little because if that ship started shooting at them, they were so very dead. Okay, let's see how good a diversion Loki is, Barton remarked quietly. He must have been thinking about the same thing as Juyu, then. Just keep flying, Barton, Stark said. Now, he warned him. That was definitely a warning in his tone. Oh, I'm sorry, but I don't trust your lover boy as much as you do, Barton replied. Hatchet groaned in annoyance. Well, Barton, if you feel so very... He started, but was interrupted by Steve's stern voice. Not now, he said. We have a common enemy to deal with. We can go back to our stupid arguments once we're done here. Amen to that. I do not want to be listening to this, an unfamiliar female voice said. Who are you? Stark asked just before Juyu could. Tony, I think I should be insulted, the woman answered. What? Stark asked. The woman huffed. Janet Von Dyne. You attended a lot of my parties. There's a blank, but the name sounds familiar, Stark said. Ugh, never mind, Janet said. We don't have time for this right now. We'll catch up later. Right, sorry, Steve spoke up. I should have done the introductions. You have not met Hank and Janet yet. They've joined us a few years ago. But you already know Agent Wilson, I think. For the love of God, do not call me Agent Wilson, man. Sam is fine. Or Falcon. Whatever the heck you want, I'm serious. Another unfamiliar voice joined in, this time a man. I am not going to be able to keep track of you all, Juyu said. So let's keep the chatter to a minimum, shall we? Agreed, Drongo said. Shame, I was just starting to enjoy this relaxing conversation. That was definitely Bucky. Juyu could recognize his voice already. It looks like we can land safely, Barton said. They were getting really close now, and the other's ship did not start shooting at them. So far, so good. Loki knew what he was doing after all. Then someone started shooting at them, but not from the battleship, from the ground. The Quinjet twisted out of the way immediately, and Juyu moved in the other direction, putting some distance between them. Can you see them? Barton asked. Not yet, Ju told him. She flicked her gaze down at the control panel and activated the automatic targeting system. There were a lot of people down there, though, so she had to choose her targets wisely. There, B said, and pointed down on the ground at the far left. The base was definitely under locks. The other soldiers were down at the base in different locations, dozens of them at every spot. They definitely cut off the docks from the base itself. And they didn't just have guns. There were something like cannons or turrets set up in between and on top of some buildings. So, I don't think they're going to give back the base without a fight, Ju said. Falcon and Wasp are flying out to distract them, Steve said. Concentrate fire on those small batteries they built. I'll join them, Bee said, standing up from her seat. She was immediately rolling her shoulders and sprouting wings. Bee's armor was light and practical. It did not cover all of her skin. It was made up of different pieces that shifted and moved in case she needed to drastically change her body shape. Thoughtful of Stark, really. It was not much different from what Loki usually wore, a small chest plate, light van braces, and leg guards. It also left enough space free on her back for the wings, among other things. You can fly, Bucky asked in surprise. I can do a lot of things, Bee answered simply. Drongo and Hatchet didn't need to be warned to hold on when Yu opened the back door to let Bee out. The draft inside got really strong right away, but this was not the first time Yu flew with the back door open, so she can handle it without a problem. Be careful, Drongo warned her sister. Bee didn't say anything, and Yu was too distracted with flying to be able to turn around and look at her face. She did see, however, as a black-yellow shape jumped out of the Quinjet. She's out, Hedgett said. Yu shut the door again, then immediately changed directions to avoid getting shot. Once we take out a few of these, we can land, Stark said. Yu sighed as she looked around on the ground, because that was easier said than done. These guys barricaded themselves really well. Every time she tried to turn and shoot at them, she was targeted by 2 or 3 different cannons, forcing her to switch directions and fly a little further away. You have to drop us off, Drongo said. How am I supposed to do that? Yu asked in return. Just get close enough to a building, we can jump down to a roof, Hatchet said. Fine, Yu said, and went to make a big turn. It would have been stupid to make it obvious what they were planning to do. That's a good plan, actually, Bucky said. We should do the same. Wait until they make it first, Natasha warned. I'll give you cover, girl, Barton said. Don't call me God, Bertie, Yu shot back and opened the Drake's back door again. She spotted a taller building not that far away from the big patch of grass at one corner of the base. It was as good a spot as any. Okay, get ready to jump, she said, and sharply turned to approach the building as quickly as possible. The Quinjet appeared right above them and started shooting at the batteries down on the ground. Barton was giving them covering fire like he promised. Yu slowed the Drake down just enough to hover above the building for a moment, but it gave more than enough time for Drongo and Hatchet to jump out. She immediately yanked the control wheel up to move away out of crossfire. The ship still got hit a few times, but nothing too dangerous. The Quinjet shot out into the sky too, away from the turrets, shooting at it. I'd hate to be the one to suggest massive amounts of violence, Stark said, which was a blatant lie because he loved being the one to do it. But I think it would be best if the Hulk came out to play. We gotta get down there quicker than this. What do you say, Bruce? You're probably right, Bruce answered. Alright, Cap agreed. Hatchet, find the Fae. Make sure the barrier stays down. Drongo, you and the Hulk can take out all these small batteries. The rest of us will follow as soon as we can. Falcon, Wasp, and Bee scout the base and the surrounding areas. I want to know how many of them we have to deal with. Wasp and Bee. That's amusing, Janet chuckled. It's short for Biviania, Bee told her. Yu did not hear her full name spoken out loud since she was a hatchling, so it stunned her for a moment. She wasn't able to say it correctly for a very long time when she was small. That's why they shortened it to something as simple as Bee. Just hearing her sister say it made her smile, despite the situation. Her full name was spoken because Bee was able to say it out loud. Yeah, she won't ever stop smiling about this. Holy crap, I did not know that, Stark exclaimed with genuine surprise. But let's talk about it later. Want me to drop you off? Barton asked, obviously for Bruce. Just open the door, Bruce said. And from now on, I'm off the comlink like usual. He added. They were close enough that Juyu could see when the back door of the Quinjet opened. Then Bruce just simply walked out, plummeting down immediately, but of course by the time he hit the ground, he was big, mean, and green. That's never not going to look awesome, Juyu said. Just like at the time of the attack on Stark's house, the Hulk was the most perfect distraction one could wish for. The other soldiers had no time to shoot or even attack. The rest of them, they were too busy getting out of harm's way. Drongo shadowed the Hulk, followed him around from one battery to another. Hatchet was nowhere in sight. He immediately must have gone to find the Fae. Juyu landed with the Drake at a relatively secluded spot where hopefully it won't get trashed or by anything. B was still up in the air with Falcon and Wasp searching the whole base in order to locate their enemies. They're out in the city too, Janet reported. I saw at least 5 or 6 roadblocks. Civilians? Steve asked in return. Not many on the streets, probably hiding, Janet continued. There are casualties though, and I can see a lot of burnt-out police cars. I think the cops tried to fight back. So what's next? Juyu asked. It was strange to be standing with the Avengers without any of her crewmates, but at least she was connected to everyone. Steve was obviously used to be the one in charge, and nobody questioned his orders. Stark told them to follow his lead, and the man obviously knew what he was doing, so Juyu had no problem with this. We're going to find out where all the Marines and sailors are, Steve said. Once the base is secure, we move out to the city. Stark, is there any movement from the other's ship? Things are quiet, but no sign of Loki either, Stark answered. Keep me posted, Steve told him. Bucky, Ant-Man, start searching the buildings in this sector. They probably locked everyone up somewhere. Start with the barracks and the gym halls. Both Bucky and the guy, who was probably Hank then, nodded and took off. Steve continued. Drongo, do you copy? He asked. Loud and clear, Captain, Drongo answered through the comlink. What's your position right now? We're at the docks, he said. They could all hear the Hulk's roar, both through Drongo's mic and faintly in the distance. Stay there. If you find any of the others' men, just clear them out. Those ships in the docks are going to be very useful. We have to be able to access them. We can most definitely do that, Drongo said. Widow and I will move over to the command center, Steve said then, turning his attention back to them. We can maybe contact the whole base from there. Hawkeye, Juyu, I need you at the main entrance. You have to keep it clear and secure. We got a lot of people in here, and they're all probably going to be eager to get out to the city and kick these guys out. Sounds simple enough, Juyu said and took off running. She saw enough from the base up from the air to know which way to go. She heard when Barton started running after her. Wait, look, it's going to be faster this way, Barton said and took a sharp turn to the right, where a car was standing in the middle of the road, its doors wide open. Not a fan of running? Juyu asked, following him. I could grow some wings and fly us there. Barton looked at her for a moment. I can't decide whether I find that cool or freaky, he said, then jumped into the car. Okay, keys are here, get in, he urged. Juyu did. Not even a second later, Barton was turning the car around and speeding towards the main entrance. Well, that's not good, Stark started to say, but Juyu wasn't able to hear the rest of it. An ear-splitting noise filled the air, sharper than a boom of thunder, but just as loud. A bright flash of light followed, then the sound of an explosion not that far behind them. Juyu immediately turned around to see what it was, while Barton's eyes were trained on the rearview mirror. Oh, crap! Juyu breathed out as she watched the smoking, burning pile of rubble that was one of the base's buildings just moments ago. Whatever Loki's been doing, it's not working anymore, Stark said. The same noise was coming from the sky again. Juyu leaned out of her window to stare up at the other ship. Not that she needed proof that it was where the shot came from. There was a bright spot on the underside of the ship which grew into a beam of energy targeting the base. The explosion was just as big as the previous one. Juyu could feel the shockwave on her face, and she had to close her eyes because of the bright flash of light. She sat back in the car. That's it, I'm coming closer, Stark said. Stark, the Iron Mage doesn't stand a chance against the ship, Drongo warned him. I know, Stark said grimly, so I'm gonna let him know that I'm the one flying it and hope he still wants me alive. That's an even worse plan than Loki's was, Juyu yelled at him. They're gonna incinerate you! Shield could send some fighter jets. Barton said. No, they would drop like flies. Stark said, no need to send them to their deaths. Stark, I hope you know what you're doing. Steve said, not really. Laughed Stark, but I'm doing it anyway. That did not reassure Ju one bit, but she bit her lips and stayed quiet. The car screeched to a halt, and Barton and Ju were out of it a moment later. Nobody was anywhere near the entrance. Well, nobody alive. There were uniformed men lying on the pavement, their bodies half scorched from energy guns, their blood just a dark pool around them. We got the gate, Cap, Barton reported back. I'll take this side, you take the other. He looked at Ju then. She nodded and took her position. They could come from the outside, too, Barton warned her. Ju rolled her eyes. I'm not an idiot, she told him and turned her rifle to energy mode. No way was she going to mess around by just knocking them unconscious. Again, there was the same noise she heard the first 2 times. She looked up at the other's ship as the beam charged. Then she heard the Iron Mage. It was maybe strange that she recognized the sound, but she did. She would have been able to recognize it out of 1,000 ships. The Iron Mage soared through the sky above them, flying closer to the other ship and letting go a couple of shots at it, warning shots really, just to get their attention. Their ship was not that small, but it still looked so little compared to the dark monster that hovered above them. The third shot did not come, so Stark definitely achieved something for her now. Ju watched as the Iron Mage flew high up to the sky, higher than the other's ship, but staying close to it. We found them, said Bucky then. Well, some of them. We're going to have to open up every single barrack to free the rest of them. Also, we got some casualties. It's not that bad considering everything, but still plenty. Yeah, we found bodies as well, Steve said. Tell everyone to help you open up the rest of the barracks. I think I'll be able to make a little announcement from here so that everyone on base can hear me. On it, Cap, Bucky said. Wasp, Bee, Falcon, how does the city look like? I'm on the 5, Falcon said right away. But I got it under control. And I just watched 2 football teams lynch a small group of these alien guys. No freaking way, Barton said. Yep, we're right by the Qualcomm Stadium. Now I know what it looks like to be on the wrong end of an angry mob. They just took their guns and beat them up. It was awesome. The police took down a group of 5 by the train station next to the bay, Janet said. They're tearing down the roadblock as we speak. I found a few of them too, Bee added quietly. Where? Steve asked. Doesn't matter, they're dead now, Bee told him. Oh, alright, good job, Steve said. Keep looking for more. There do not seem to be that many of them down here, Drongo said. We secured the docks. Unless the ship itself attacks us, we have the area under control. The Hulk is getting a little impatient, though. We need to take down that battleship, Ju said, looking at the ship in question. The Iron Mage was still too close to it, but at least there was no shooting. She was pretty sure that Stark was talking with the other. She saw no other reason why the 2 ships would just stand so still next to one another. Barton was looking up at the ship, too, with a deep frown on his face. I don't like this, he said, shaking his head. It was too easy so far. We're just that good, Ju offered. Barton sent her a look that spoke volumes. Something started crackling not that far away from them, and it took Ju a moment to realize that the sound came from the speakers on the building not that far away from them. There was a short, sharp beep, then Steve started speaking. His confident voice came from every speaker she could spot. Probably he could be heard on the whole base. This is Captain Steve Rogers from the Avengers. We are doing our best to free every single one of you. Not just the base, but the whole city of San Diego is under attack. We need your help to defeat these invaders. All military personnel should return to their usual designated position. We are especially going to need air defense. Everyone else is needed in the city to help us ensure the safety of civilians. The enemy is not afraid to use lethal force, so we won't be either. Arm yourselves and head towards the main entrance as soon as possible. Good tactic, Ju admitted. Now they didn't need to explain everything to everyone. Soldiers had the good habit of doing what they were told to do. It was really useful right now. Yep, everyone trusts Cap, Barton said. They wouldn't have given a damn if I would have been the one saying all that. They're going to listen to him. Ju had nothing to say to that, so she just looked around again, keeping her eyes and ears sharp. I think the rest of them are still up there, Barton said. Rest of them? How many soldiers could a ship like this transport? He asked. We saw a lot of them, but not enough. Barely 100, maybe 2, scattered in the city. I doubt he only brought that many. Why is he keeping them on his ship, then? Biding his time? Barton shrugged. Waiting for the right opportunity? I don't know. We just need to be alert, that's all I'm saying. They got Loki, Stark said suddenly. That was the plan, Juyu told him right away. No, they actually got Loki, Stark said, his voice too strained, too forced, filled with something more than just anger. Worry? No. Fear. Maybe he's just... Juyu tried to reason. Loki could be playing them still, waiting for the right moment to escape. No. I am looking at him. He's not... Damn it. Stark cut himself off. Stark, don't do anything stupid, Steve warned. Don't tell me what to do. Stark snapped at him. We gotta get him out of there. I'm in, but how? Juyu asked. The other's not gonna make that easy, Barton said, catching Juyu's attention again. He pointed at the sky, and Juyu turned to look. There was dark cloud of movement all around the other's ship, something like a beehive, a swarm, or thousands flying out of the battleship and towards the ground, towards them and the city. The same flying chariots they saw when the other came for Loki, but too many of them to count, almost darkening the sky as they approached. I have serious flashbacks to New York right now, Barton said as he pulled an arrow out of his quiver. Juyu raised her rifle too, looking at the swarm of chariots through her scope. Then the soldiers on the chariots started shooting. Orange energy blasts rained down on them from above like fiery rain. Juyu aimed and pulled the trigger just as Barton let an arrow fly.